Welcome back to my channel, Living North Idaho, where I discuss all things about real estate in and around the Coeur d'Alene region and living your best life in North Idaho. In this video, I will be discussing the top 5 regrets people have when moving to Coeur d'Alene and tips to overcome them to make your move here smooth. Now, Coeur d'Alene is a beautiful place to live, but it does have some challenges and some things that you should be aware of. Yes, this video does have to talk mostly about Coeur d'Alene, but also is beneficial for looking at moving to any of the towns in our area: Post Falls, Hayden, Rastrom. First regret was underestimating the climate. Seasonal extremes. We can have very harsh winters with lots of snow, not a lot of sun, and people that are coming from milder climates might not be prepared for that. So just be prepared for winters to be darker and gloomier. When looking into the climate of Coeur d'Alene, there are reports from Best Living that Coeur d'Alene has 174 sunny days of the year, which is below the U.S. average of 205 sunny days of the year. And in comparison to Seattle, because a lot of people know the Seattle weather, they have 152 sunny days of the year. Locals tend to try to vacation then in January and February to warmer places to soak up some of that sun because of the grayer days that we do have. Summers can be generally pleasant, but we do get some extreme hot days, whereas it can push 100 or just over 100. We are in the mountains, so it is a little bit different than desert heat. Now, more towards August and September, depending on the temperatures we've had and the snowfall that we've received, we can get drier climates, which then lead to wildfire season. We have had air quality sometimes that have stuck in the unhealthy areas, so just be aware that sometimes we do get those. And in recent years, it seems to be happening more often than not. And it's not necessarily that Coeur d'Alene has all the fires, it's all the fires around us, maybe some in Canada, some in Washington, but all the smoke comes and settles in this area. Check out this photo I have of a house I actually sold that was overlooking the lake. One is when he first wrote an offer on the house, and the other one is when smoke season came rolling in. One of the tips for dealing with the extreme climates that we can have is just be prepared. You might need to get winter tires, studded winter tires, or get a better vehicle for driving around in our winter conditions. Obviously, all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive is mostly what is needed in this area, so just be prepared with that. Again, each year is going to vary, but the better prepared you are, the easier it's going to make it for you. Also, when it comes to wildfire season, just maybe be prepared to stay inside or have limited access outside. Again, it's always going to vary on the year as to whether the wildfires are extreme or not. Not researching the local job market. The job market in Coeur d'Alene is not as diverse as in larger cities. Key industries can be healthcare, manufacturing, and tourism, which can be seasonal. As of March of this year, the average salary in the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho area is just over $46,000. Which, if you do the math, does not lead to being able to purchase and qualify a home around our average price. The tip to make sure you know you're going to be able to qualify to live in Coeur d'Alene is make sure you have your job already taken care of before getting to Coeur d'Alene. This is not necessarily an area that you can move to and then look for a good paying job. You may need to go into Spokane in that realm, but you will be commuting and there's just more things you need to look into. Make sure you know how much you're going to make because that's going to affect what you can qualify and the homes that you're going to be able to find and live in here. Overlooking the cost of living. Housing and taxes. While Idaho has been on the lower side for living, with the demand of everything, housing prices have gone up dramatically. Now, yes, it is still lower compared to other states where people are moving from, but it has gone up. That had been one of the big draws to people moving toward this area, but that was about 3 years ago. Prices have gone up and have gone up substantially. So just make sure you are aware of what you can afford and what your options look like when purchasing a home in this area. Also, property taxes and general living expenses are going to vary based upon where you want to live. Obviously, the more rural you get, the less the property taxes are going to be, whereas some of the different towns do have higher property taxes. Also, property taxes are based on neighborhoods and subdivisions, so one of them may have a higher tax levy than one right next door to it. My tip would be is to do your due diligence and looking at the different neighborhoods you're interested in, specifically for the taxes, because those can vary, and talk to a lender when you start out your process so you know what you're going to be able to afford. And talk to a real estate agent so you can get a handle on what homes are selling for what price. That way you know whether your lifestyle you are going to be able to live here and want to live here with the cost of everything. Also, if you do find out that some of the cost of living may be too high in one specific area, like Coeur d'Alene does tend to have higher prices than maybe Post Falls in some areas, then you can gauge that and find out before you get here of other areas that you may be interested in looking at. And again, we do have different tax levies for different neighborhoods, so you may be looking in one neighborhood and the taxes are very high, whereas the other one might not, and that can help you decide on which areas you would like to look for a home in. So just make sure you do your due diligence and understand what those look like when you're budgeting for purchasing a home in this area. Ignoring transportation issues. In North Idaho, we are very dependent on cars. We do not have a lot of public transportation. So if you're moving from an area where you do not have a vehicle or are used to using public transportation, that is going to have to change and you are going to need a vehicle. Yes, you could get away with riding a bike in the summer months, but that's not always going to be an option because of the extreme winters that we can have. My recommendation for a vehicle is again going to be either an all-wheel drive or a four-wheel drive vehicle just because of the extremes that we can get. Yes, one year you may not need it. We may have a milder winter, but it is better to have one and not need it than need one and not have it. I drive an all-wheel drive vehicle, can get around town plenty, but you always want to make sure you have good tires and traction. You're also going to want to make sure that your vehicle is maintained because again, there are some times when you're just going to need it. Also, you may have to invest in snow tires and or chains depending on where you live. Now, I drive around town. I do not use chains here locally, but if you get into some of the rural areas, you may need them. Neglecting community integration. Cultural adjustments. Some newcomers feel isolated if they do not engage in the community. Now, everybody always says that people in and around Coeur d'Alene are so friendly. I regularly walk around my neighborhood, and every person I see, I smile, I say hi. So it is very common in this area. So if that's not something you're used to, you may want to get used to it, because that is one of the beauties of this area. Coeur d'Alene does have a strong sense of community. Now, we have had people moving in from outside, but people still like to smile, say hi, and are, for the most part, typically friendly. To not feel so isolated, get involved. Go to some of the community events. Volunteer for Ironman. Ironman is here every June, and they look for volunteers, along with going down to the Art on the Green. Art on the Green is where local artists go. You can walk around, get to know the community, and get involved. There's also different community centers. If you want to get more involved, just reach out and I'll gladly share those with you. So when I asked around, those were the top 5 regrets that people had of not understanding before they moved to Coeur d'Alene. Hopefully my tips will help you so that you can understand these regrets and so that you don't have them before you decide to move here. If you have any questions about the real estate market in and around Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, my name is Amanda Kusper. I'm with the Phoenix Agency.